This is Comic Geek Speak, episode 1681, Star Wars The Last Jedi movie review.
Welcome to the show. I'm Adam Murdo.
I'm Shane Kelly.
And I'm Chris Eberly.
Still
Merry Christmas, brethren. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Happy Life Day.
Indeed, indeed.
Oh, Life Day.
For an additional dose of real-world holiday celebration, happy Boxing Day.
Oh, that's right.
That's when we've gotten
Indeed.
together to record this
On
episode.
Boxing Day.
And I believe we're going sponsor-free for this episode, so
Yeah, I think we are.
let's just tear straight ahead, jump right to light speed here. It's a little over a week, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's more like...
Almost 2 weeks.
Yeah, almost 2 weeks since the
Almost 2
release of
weeks.
this film. It's nearly a week since I got to see it. In
Okay.
theaters. A little behind the curve there because of the nature of my employment.
Oh,
but,
sure.
Finally did get to see it, as all three of us have.
I was a little behind the curve because of ailments and loss of voice for a few days.
Yeah, that's behind the curve indeed. But I'm glad that you're better now.
Yeah, me too.
Have you seen it
Indeed.
twice?
I've seen it twice. Yeah.
Chris, how many times have you seen it?
Only once thus far, brother.
Is it in your plans to see it again?
Most likely, yes. I mean, there's other movies I want to see first during my time off, but I would like to any Star Wars film. I find that the first time one comes out, I'm so excited and all that I need to see it a second time to catch things I may have missed, and also B to confirm my initial feeling.
Sure.
So, because that I call it the Phantom Menace rule. Granted, this film is nowhere near that category, but still, I find it a safe guideline to follow with Star Wars movies.
I still think of all the prequels, Phantom Menace tells a better complete story in one film with little problems. I mean, Jar Jar's a problem unto himself because he drives me nuts, but compared to Attack of the Clones, which had many problems, and Revenge of the Sith, which even had problems, but I loved. I still think Phantom Menace tells a whole story.
No, but you're so beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you think love is blind? Sorry. Anyway.
Yeah. Can't think about those without doing that kind of stuff.
So all three of them have problems of their own.
Yeah.
But, each one has different problems from the others.
They sure do.
And you could say each one of them sucks a little less in one particular way than the other two.
But that still doesn't mean I don't like them, because I still watch all of them when they're on TV or when I feel like pulling them up on my phone or something. I'll still watch them.
It's been a long time since I've seen, any of them, really. I think Revenge of the Sith I saw the fewest number of times, and I haven't seen it since it was in theaters. And that, believe it or not, was 12 years ago.
Yeah. That's hard to believe. All right.
Any event, let's get down to brass tacks here, folks. It's episode 8. Revenge of my
Jedi.
memory. The Last Jedi that we're here to discuss. So, initial impressions. I turn it over to you folks first.
I had some issues with it, especially on my first viewing, but even in that first viewing, I still enjoyed it. I still laughed. I still teared up at one spot. I still enjoyed the majority of it. I do have issues with things that happen, but I still enjoyed it.
Yep, no doubt we will get to those.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like Shane, there's a couple areas where I have some quibbles / issues, some of which may be addressed in a future installment, perhaps. But overall, I really enjoyed the movie. I think the casting in the film is very spot on for virtually all the characters, and I'm very excited to talk about the many aspects of the film that just really put steam in my strides. There's a couple areas, and again, I'll get into some more detail, but for me, a lot of some of the main issues I have with these new films is the First Order, which I'll talk about as we move forward.
My reaction was also mixed, perhaps more sharply than those of the two of you. But it was. I didn't dislike it enough not to want to see it again. I do want to see it again. As sometimes these things do improve on repeat viewings, as you two hinted. There were parts of this movie that thrilled me, that gave me what I feel I need out of a Star Wars movie. Not that I went into this with any preconceptions. Let me hasten to add here. I had no notions whatsoever as to what this movie would or should be. Honestly, I'd barely given it a thought in the 2 years since I went to see The Force Awakens. But what I got, parts of it pleased me very much. Other parts severely tried my patience. And I think you guys can agree with that. It's just,
I will.
I've always been of our little geek crew here. I've been one to allow the negativity to bleed through a little more strongly in my reviews. I let these things bother me more than they do you guys. I get the feeling. But yeah, so some things, some creative decisions I had to question. But the parts that I liked were enough to make this a worthy Star Wars movie and one that I would like to see again. I actually had a little Padawan learner along with me when I went to see it last week. A guy named Jack Myers. He's a high school senior. He's one of the stock boys who work for us at the Christmas barn. And we were going to just have like a staff night out at the movies, but everyone but the two of us crapped out. So we just went to see it. Just the two of us. It was a late showing, like 9:30 at night. And we came away from it. He had questions, of course. He's been watching as many of the movies as he can on like a TNT or Spike.
Oh, yeah, they've been running them like mad.
I'm sure they have been. Right up until the release of this one, anyway.
Yeah. Yep.
Just to prime the pump, get the fandom excited. But his impression was that he liked it fairly well. His one complaint was that he thought that the hokey, corny humor, I think his wording was something like that. But he thought there was a little too much of it and put in the wrong places from time to time. And I kind of agreed with him. It's not that there's no precedent for comedy relief in Star Wars movies.
No.
Certainly there has been from the start. But in this movie, quantity and placement got to be something of an issue. It's just he needed to know the right time to make the jokes. So on the whole, a mix of bad and good for me. As we shall see.
Well, may I jump in a bit, gentlemen?
Sure. Absolutely.
Spoilers,
So,
by the way.
Oh, yes. We're going to be spoiling this from one end of the galaxy to the other.
Indeed. And then I should tell the audience we're also going to tack on a little bit of a movie trailer discussion at the end as well. I went into this film, again, not with really any specific expectations. I was very excited to see Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker. That's what I was most excited about for this movie, and I was really interested to see how they're going to interpret the character as, the wizened old Jedi who's sort of, fallen from grace in a sense. I really wanted to see how they developed that. And for the most part, I was not disappointed when it came to how they used Hamill in the movie. In fact, I wanted more scenes of him training Rey.
Yeah, I did too.
On the island, because I really enjoyed the scenes they show where like he's kind of stick fighting with her, and I like how they until the end when he was cast in that illusion, they really even show like Luke at his most powerful, which he still is an incredibly powerful Jedi.
Yeah,
and I enjoyed sort of the sense of restraint, knowing that power is there, but he's so traumatized what happened with his school and all since that he's kind of, what does she say that he's like he's tuned himself out of the Force, right? Wasn't that what he was doing?
He's turned himself off. He shut himself off from the Force
to make himself harder to track.
And I don't think he wanted to feel it. I think he felt he was such a failure at it, he didn't want to bother with it anymore either. I mean, it was in part not being able to be found through the Force, but he also felt like he failed the Force so much that he didn't want anything to do with it, I don't think, anymore. He wanted to distance himself from anything. Yeah,
absolutely. And I really enjoyed his performance. I've always loved Mark Hamill. He's a better actor than people give him credit for.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
When you think about his voice work, he's then also done stage work. So he's no slouch when it comes to just being a fine actor. And I thought he really carried the gravitas of an older Luke who's been deeply damaged by his experiences. So that part of the movie is what I was most looking forward to, and for the most part, I was not disappointed. What I also really enjoyed, I thought the battle scenes of this film were phenomenal. The opening scenes with the Rebel bomber fleet, which was kind of right up a World War II type motif where they're trying to take down the enormous dreadnought. And I like how they showed Poe Dameron, who, as like the hotshot pilot, who's little too devil may care, perhaps in his tactics. And Oscar Isaac's one of my favorite working actors right now. Ever since I saw him in the Coen Brothers masterpiece Inside Llewyn Davis, so I think he so perfectly fits that role. I think he's a worthy successor to a Han Solo type character. I'm really looking forward to seeing how they develop him further.
My only problem with him this time was I thought he was a little out of character for being so insubordinate at times. I know he wanted to know what was going on and try to help move the plan forward, but as a soldier in the Resistance for so long under Leia, I would expect him to know that he's not going to know everything right away, even in desperate times.
That's a valid point, Jen. I think the way to explain that, I think it's a very good point actually, is that they wanted to move that was a plot device to move everything along, because they bring in the Laura Dern character, who I really enjoyed, as the sort of the new admiral, and she's like, who's this person? So naturally, some of the soldiers are going to be more recalcitrant about serving under. So they had no experience with, didn't know if they could trust her judgment.
Right.
I think you have a valid point there, but I think they were just using that to kind of move the plot along to create that conflict between Laura Dern's character and Oscar Isaac's character. What I also really enjoyed about this film, not enjoyed in the sense that I thought it was very well done, was that they showed the cost of the Resistance / rebellion, and a lot of people died.
Yeah.
The Colleen Wing actress from Iron Fist, right? She's killed in the hangar when it explodes.
In the A-Wing, the one that was
yeah. I mean, by the end of the movie, almost the entire Resistance is dead.
Yeah.
So, not that that's something to get my rocks off on, but it's a war and you're fighting an overwhelming foe. So, I really like how they kind of went for the throat there to show again the cost of trying to fight this gargantuan opponent. The other thing that I really enjoyed about the movie was the Benicio del Toro character. Now, I thought for sure it was going to be Lando in that casino.
So did I. Even if it was just for a minute.
disappointing.
He didn't have to come back full force. I just wanted them to run into him and have him point them in the right direction, and that whole casino scene would have been much better for me.
Yeah. So I couldn't agree more. I was disappointed by that. I don't know if they tried to get him back or not. I have no idea. But
well, he did voiceover work for Rebels as Lando, so I can't
that's
figure
true.
out why
He
he
did.
wouldn't have done it.
Yeah,
But
little as Billy D is doing these days, I think all they have to do is ask.
yeah, but who knows?
So, but what I liked about the Del Toro character was that, kind of like with Rogue One, which by the way, every time I've seen Rogue One, I enjoy it more and more. By the way,
I do too.
I think it's one of the strongest of the more recent Star Wars films. But I like how Del Toro was this very shades of gray character. One of my favorites is the movies where he goes, well, this guy is selling both to the rebellion and to the First Order.
Yeah,
and that's because Star Wars ultimately is a fairy tale. It's a space opera, it's fantasy. But I like how they explore, and Rogue One, which is why I think Rogue One is so effective. They explore what it takes to make this resistance or this rebellion function.
yeah.
And how there has to be some very difficult and sometimes very sordid choices have to be made. I appreciate them bringing a little bit of that. Not to oversaturate and kind of puncture the fairy tale element, but I like that. And last thing I'll say, then I'm monopolizing. I'm sorry, gentlemen. I think one of my biggest issues with the film, with these new films, and it does not detract from overall enjoyment. It's just more of like a major nitpick. I find the First Order enormously boring. I find it. There's no motivation for it. They don't really explain what's their goal. Are they Sith? Are they trying to take over the galaxy? What are they doing? The head admiral overacts so badly.
Husk, yeah, yeah, he does.
That there's just nothing intimidating or
threatening
about him at all. Maybe it's just the way he's written or the direction he's given, but and. Like, who the hell was Snoke?
Yeah.
So they killed him, and I enjoyed that scene. I thought it was very exciting. But you're wondering, like, all right, is he a Sith Lord? There's all these rumors about who he really was. I don't know if they're going to return to that, but he's just, all right, he's dead.
I hope in some form they explain who he was. Not that it's necessary, because, and some people said about this, and I don't disagree with this, you didn't know who the Emperor was when Jedi came out. You barely even knew there was an Emperor other than his mention in Star Wars and his tiny vision, holographic visual in Empire.
Yeah.
He was just there. And then in Jedi, he came about, but you knew nothing about him. You didn't even know his name. That didn't come out until the books and stuff, and then they came out in the movie. So I didn't mind that necessarily. It's just my own fanboy curiosity that I want to know who he is based on what we know of what happened between Revenge of the Sith and the original trilogy. That's where I want to know, because he's old enough that he would have been around for all that. So I do want to know who he is, but that's more of a fanboy. It doesn't serve the story really at all, other than my own curiosity.
It's true. Even if he had stuck around until episode 9, it's unlikely they would have taken the screen time to delve too much into his backstory. But,
right.
And there's still ample opportunity for that story to be told,
sure,
as you say, Shane. It's
true.
Whether in book form or maybe in one of the many spin-off Star Wars story-type movies that Disney is planning to make.
I mean, hell, they wrote a whole book about Phasma, and look what happened there.
Yes.
That was...
How little happened there.
Yeah. All right, your point about Benicio del Toro, while I loved him in it, I thought he was a waste for how much of a big deal he was in it. Now, he may come back because he certainly got paid and escaped, as far as I can tell. It's not like he got blowed up real good when everything happened. He got his money, got his ship, and left. Same with Laura Dern. I thought she was great in it. I thought it was a waste to kill her off. I find it very ironic. Well, maybe that's not the right word, but I'm going to use it. Adam, correct me if I'm wrong. I find it very ironic that the way the world is, that the 2 actors that are alive are dead in the movie, and the one actress who passed away is alive in the movie. So now you have to figure out what to do with episode 9. Now, my hope is that a few years have gone by, and they just, in a crawl or something, explain that she was killed. And move on, because I don't want to see her CGI'd for really much of anything in there.
Disney has claimed
that she won't be in it, and that's fine. So I expected her to be the one to stay on the rebel ship, turn it around, and
there are a couple of different opportunities to let Leia's character have a heroic death. Instead, they did that thing where she uses the Force to Mary Poppins herself back onto the bridge of the
and I'm not opposed with the ability of a person, a Jedi or a Force-wielding sensitive person, to have that ability. I just thought it looked terrible in the movie. And the way, I mean, she must have been floating out there for 30 seconds to a minute. I don't know that would have even saved her. So to me, that really looked weird.
Yeah, that was
when she did it.
Kind of the first blip in my enjoyment. I was totally on board with this movie, like for the first 15 minutes or so. Yeah, Chris, I agree with you when you say that the outer space dogfights were well done, and I thought it was a very smart move of Rian Johnson, one of the least questionable creative choices he made in this movie, to open with that, to give us what a lot of diehard Star Wars fans most want to see, just well choreographed outer space spaceship battles, and just demonstrating the cost of this battle to the Resistance. Another well-made point on your part, Chris, in that scene. But when it started to go a little bit downhill for me was that moment. And I kind of had to suck in my breath a bit and think to myself, should a Jedi be able to do that? Let alone a person like Leia, who, despite having a strong legacy of sensitivity to and power over the Force, has had no formal Jedi training.
Well, that we don't know. We don't know how far she got with Luke. She may have gotten more training than what we are given to understand in this movie. My problem with it was that she was pushed out and just floating there for so long to then just all of a sudden wake up and pull herself in.
Would her brain still be alive at that point?
If it would have been that part happened, the ship, the part of the ship she was in, the bridge exploded, and as she got pushed out, grabbed the Force and pulled herself in right away, because that fire went out instantaneous. I mean, it vented into space. There was nothing there in a split second. I would have been more accepting of that part. If it looked way too, almost like a color form got put out there in space and just drug across the screen in.
Poor Admiral Akbar, by the way.
Yes.
So that part I had a little bit of a problem with. I could have accepted a little bit more if it looked more natural in the scene that was happening. It just looks so strange to me.
All right, so the problem is really more of the cinematography.
Yeah, not that a person or Jedi or a Force-wielding person can't do that. I do. I just don't think after so much time, it would have happened. I think more instantaneously, not a problem.
Well, I was a little iffy on both those counts.
Well, and
the story and cinematography, but I bit it back and said, yeah. I'm going to buy this.
Uh-huh.
Just for Leia's sake. I want to give Leia as many props as I can, especially since she's not going to be around for much longer. But getting back to what you had said earlier about how you're worried about what they're going to do with Leia's character in the next movie, why did they not just let her die?
Right, and if they had that part filmed and done the way they wanted it, and they weren't going to change that much of the movie to accommodate that, that's fine. That's in the beginning of the movie. But by the end, you had to have somebody sacrifice themselves to allow the rebellion, the resistance to survive, and Laura Dern turning the ship around and light speeding it through Snoke's ship, brilliant. Why not have
dazzling?
Why not have Leia do that?
Well, perhaps, Shane, they wanted to have that final moment between Luke and Leia.
Well, maybe.
Which occurred afterwards.
And maybe that's where they couldn't reshoot or rearrange it. That just bothered me. There were plenty of opportunities to do something with it. And again, she survived. That's fine. It'll be explained. I don't doubt that. I don't think it'll be shoddy or just a throwaway thing in any way, shape, or form. I just appreciate the way they exited Han and Luke. And I wanted something similar for Leia, and I don't know that we'll get that.
Yeah. Well, and again, this is one thing that's been turning up in a lot of reviews, apparently, both professional and informal, as seen over the internet, social media, and so forth. That Ryan Johnson, as screenwriter and director, was going very far out of his way to subvert fan expectations and just throw them as many curveballs as possible, sometimes tweaking their noses pretty sharply in the process. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. I mean, on the one hand, a lot of people have been celebrating him for this.
Sure.
Well, good job for giving us an unpredictable Star Wars movie, certainly, but I don't know if we as fans ought to be congratulating a guy for making us look silly at the same time. But anyway, I think we can probably chalk the Leia surviving up to some of that, despite the fact that there were opportunities to put her character to bed and just do proper homage to the character and also to the actress who played it.
Yeah.
But I guess he just wanted to surprise us that way. So instead, we get dead Luke in this movie. I think a lot of us expected him to survive to the ninth one, and instead Leia survives instead.
Oh no, I meant I should have said I expected him to die in this one, but I do expect him to show up as a Force ghost in the next one.
Yeah.
Oh, almost certainly. And how wonderful was the scene with Yoda, by the way?
Yeah, and a real puppet.
Yes.
That was fantastic.
Made it that much more delightful for that.
I thought Yoda was a little bit silly. I don't know that I'd see him really giggling like that and kicking his feet, but it was still enjoyable.
I think he would, because he's been to the other side of life now.
That's true.
He's been and he understands just how much like a big cosmic joke all of this is.
Yeah. I didn't mind the curveballs the way they were delivered. I didn't think it was necessarily as original as what everyone is praising it for, because I felt like I got a lot of the best of the Empire, the best of Jedi thrown together and strung together into a movie.
Oh yes, you got the Vision Quest, of the Jedi in training in the mysterious cave. That's definitely a callback to Empire, and then of course the whole bit with people dressing up in Imperial uniforms and sneaking on board a vessel someplace to destroy some mysterious gadget or other. Not only does that go all the way back to Han, Luke, and Obi-Wan trying to shut down the tractor beam on the Death Star. We also just saw it a year ago in Rogue One. So,
and again, it didn't take away from my enjoyment, but I don't know that I would praise it as such originality and throwing so much difference into a Star Wars universe. I just thought it was well done for what it was.
I do think some people who are in fandom are kind of going overboard with the praise, just as some others in the fandom are going overboard with the criticism.
Oh, absolutely. I loved all the Luke and Rey parts, the training. I did think the Porgs were a little bit forced. I thought that they were going to have a purpose there to help hide Luke and the island by being a blocker to the Force,
kind of. That would have been interesting.
But that's not the way they went, or at least that's not how they explained anything yet.
Yeah, and again, there's a creature that... I shouldn't have said again, because this is a completely different point. But creatures that block the Force naturally, we're getting back into midichlorian territory there.
Well, in the Thrawn trilogy of books, there are creatures that do that.
Are you talking about the Isalamiri?
If that's what they're called, I don't even remember their name.
Furry lizards that cling to trees.
Yes, yeah. So I was okay with something being like that in a movie, even if it wasn't directly those things from the books. I just don't know why they didn't go that way. Because they were they were promoted so heavily in product, and man, they're out there, and they were really just nothing.
Yeah,
I mean, they were just
around.
They're
kind of like the Jawas or Ugnaughts of this movie.
Even worse, Jawas and Ugnaughts had a purpose. These things just kind of sat there and looked cute, and that's fine.
Yeah,
they were cute.
in the Millennium Falcon.
Sold a lot of merchandise.
Yeah.
I bet they did. They did.
But I really thought the Luke parts were really well done. The cave was visually neat, but not nearly as effective as Luke battling himself on Dagobah, which was much more effective of a dark side encounter in a cave.
Here's my question to you two fine gentlemen. Are her parents nobodies, or was he misdirecting?
I think it could be either way.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't take what he said, especially after he lied to Husk about what happened in the throne room.
Yeah.
I don't take anything he said to face value. I think he was just trying to play her, possibly, to get her to side with him. Now,
and it's also Rian Johnson playing the fans and
absolutely.
Trying to deflate their various fan theories about whose Rey's parents were.
It could absolutely be that they're nobody, and she's just one of a new generation of people that can use the Force. And that's fine.
I would actually. That's one of the more brilliant moves that Johnson made in this movie, as far as I'm concerned. Not everybody has to be a part of some sprawling Jedi dynasty or birthright.
See, now at first, before I saw the movie, I was really hoping it would just be a continuation in the episodic movies of a Skywalker lineage. After seeing it, I thought, no, I'd rather it the other way. I'd rather end that and move on to other people being able to do it and focusing on them. If Rey's the next of a new generation of Jedi, that's fine. And if her parents are nobodies, that's even better. And I really came, by the end of that first viewing of it, I really came to that and thought, yeah, this is a better way to go. Just me. And like you said.
What did we think of Adam Driver's performance in this film as Kylo Ren?
I love that he was bothered by Snoke constantly downing him, constantly saying, yes, I trust you. You've done so well. No, you didn't. You're still just a whiny little baby.
Totally pulling his strings.
And finally snapped to where he, and I appreciated where, so Snoke has Rey forced down on her knees, turning her around with the Force so that Kylo can kill her. And he takes out his hilt of his lightsaber and he starts turning it while simultaneously turning his other hand to turn Luke's lightsaber towards Snoke. The way Snoke talked, he was so into, as I do air quotes, into being able to feel what Kylo was feeling. He missed that because of what Kylo was doing and the intent to kill Rey, and then just dispatch Snoke quickly. Perfect. And then to have Rey and Ben bring about their own prophecies that they saw in each other through that entire scene was brilliant. And I enjoyed the battle and everything surrounding that entirely. That was one of my favorite parts in the whole movie.
Yeah, I think
it was thrilling. Sorry, Murd, go ahead.
No, you first, Chris.
Well, I agree, I concur with you, Shane. I thought that scene was thrilling. I'm enjoying the fact that they're really, I think with the Ben/Kylo Ren character, they're really trying to bring some complexity and some depth to that character. Like, he did not fire on his mother's flagship, for example. I mean, his wingmen did, but he was clearly torn about Rey. I really enjoyed the scenes where they're kind of seeing each other and communicating through the Force, even though they're in different locations.
Absolutely.
And that's fun also because the director is like toying with the audience, like, and I mean that in a good way. Are they related? Are they not related? They end up being lovers. Even that funny scene where he's shirtless, just look at you cover up. He's an interesting villain because, again, so much of good and evil villainy in fiction is through a matter of perspective. So I like how they show the scene where he attacks Luke in the temple when he's younger. There's two versions of that story, almost like a mini Rashomon, essentially, where Luke has, Luke tells his version to Rey, which isn't the full truth, and then Kylo Ren has his version, which also isn't the full truth, because he didn't realize why Luke was acting the way he was acting.
Yeah,
because Luke's thinking, "My God, this kid's going to be like my father." So I'm really enjoying where they're taking that character. Like when the Luke illusion. I love this scene where he marches out into the battlefield past the rebel trench, and he like wipes the dust off his shoulder after the massive laser barrage, and Ren is just freaking out because, my God, I can't kill this guy. I think Adam Driver, I think, is a very talented actor. I think he's because this is a fairy tale, but I think he's adding as much depth as he can to this character.
Sure.
And I'm really enjoying his performance.
I loved all those scenes as well with Luke force projecting himself to that planet. There's people that I read about online that didn't like that, thought it ruined the character, and I'm thinking, oh my God, no, that just shows how powerful he is.
Oh,
we
God,
don't know
powerful.
everything that Jedi can do. I mean, what people have seen in movies and even what we've read can be quantitative to what a Jedi should be able to do, but you still don't know. So I'm perfectly fine with somebody that powerful coming up with something that he probably never had to do before, but is doing everything, giving his entire all, literally, to save not only his sister, Rey, and all of the Resistance, but also prove a point to Ben as well.
And any of you out there who do think that this was an implausibly great display of Force ability on Luke's part, just bear in mind the exertion killed him.
Yeah.
So this is not something that just any Jedi can do casually.
Yeah.
This is an extraordinary circumstance from an extraordinary example of the Jedi Order.
Yep, I really appreciated that. And again, I really hope he comes back. I would be terribly disappointed if he doesn't come back as a Force ghost at least once in the last installment.
I think he will, especially since J.J. Abrams is going to be back in charge, and he's going to be less concerned with swerving things on us than Rian Johnson was.
And I wonder if they're going to have an Obi-Wan Force ghost or even an Anakin Force ghost.
I'd be okay with all of them in some capacity, even if it was them conversing amongst themselves about something. I expected more of that in this one too. I expected Anakin to show up.
Well, if there's
somewhere.
an Anakin Force ghost, would it be Sebastian Coe or?
I'm sure it would be young, but I would prefer older.
So would I.
I still think that was a terrible move in Jedi.
Now let me ask you this question, gentlemen. My early comments on the First Order. How do you guys feel about the First Order as like the villainous entity in the films? Like what's your take on them?
I can definitely see your point. Chris. Yeah, they are a little lackluster. They're just kind of like they're the inbred, distant descendants of the original Empire. They're the dregs, the remnants, just kind of scraped up from. They've kind of been reduced to kidnapping children to keep their ranks shored up. As far as Admiral Hux and his, or is it General? I forget.
I think General.
I think you're right. It's General. His scenery chewing is definitely in evidence. I can't disagree with you there, Chris. But I think he's just kind of hearkening back to the performances of certain actors who played Imperial officers in the original trilogy and the low-rent actors in the old military-themed film serials that Lucas saw as a child that those Imperial officers were based on. So,
true, very true. Valid point, Murd.
He's just staying true to the pedigree, you might say. And I kind of enjoy his performances, actually, and in this one even more than the last one. Because in the last movie, I had a hard time viewing the First Order as a credible threat. In this movie, they did at least seem somewhat more dangerous and scary. I agree with you, Chris, that their motivations are not clear. They appear to be just a hard-line, right-wing traditionalists who are just following in the footsteps of the old empire just because that's the way the galaxy should be. They're trying to make the galaxy great again, I guess, in their own minds, without really understanding the why of it any more than we, the audience, do. But at least they did make the First Order seem a bit more, powerful and frightening. And the Resistance.
And I'll give. I'm sorry, Murd, finish. I didn't mean to cut you off there. I apologize.
The Resistance, for their part, seem a little bit less powerful. I mean, I will say that in this second movie, the scope of the conflict between these two powers seems much smaller. It doesn't feel like there are galactic stakes involved here. They're just two small armadas of spaceships, small and getting smaller by the second as they continually blow each other up. Just having this little gang war across space, and like the rest of the galaxy is just kind of, okay, they're doing that, and we're going on with life as usual. And
I think that. You made a good point about they're recruiting children. Well, they're abducting child soldiers in terms of the First Order, and also you have to remember the Republic has been devastated in the previous film. So the Resistance has lost sort of its underpinning, its foundation. So that kind of makes sense that they have fewer ships, that they're kind of flitting about trying to avoid the First Order. And Murd, I always love when you always encourage you to think of something a different way. I totally see what you're saying about Hux and sort of the tradition that he's following there. I guess it's just me being an old fanboy in that I found the Empire so awe-inspiring in its intimidation, in its power, in its the clear tentacles it had in every aspect of the galaxy. And this is just different because, like you said, it's almost like it is the dregs,
right? Pathetic and deluded remnant of a once mighty force.
Yeah, so it just doesn't fill me with the same kind of sinister awe that the Empire did. Now, having said that, and again, Snoke, I kind of find dull, quite honestly. I mean, I like Andy Serkis. I think he's a great actor, performer. What do you want to call him?
Sure.
But he just seems like Emperor light, basically. Like, and I guess I guess part of my disappointment was I wanted there to be more to his character to kind of explain, like, how did he get his hooks into Ben? How did he recreate this this fascist organization, to use a 20th century Earth term. So again, a minor point, didn't really detract too much from my enjoyment of the movie, but they just seem kind of like low rent bad guys to me. So
a fair point to be sure.
And I think the redesign of them for being in The Force Awakens was cool to see, but I agree, especially in the first installment, Hux was much more whiny and useless. I think this time he was a bit more menacing.
Yeah, but also played for comedy relief.
Oh, absolutely. And I did like it in the beginning, but after seeing it the second time, I thought that scene went on a little bit too long with him being talked to by Poe. It wasn't bad, but it just took a little bit too long. Yeah. Then
I do enjoy his bickering though with Kylo Ren.
Oh, absolutely!
Vie for power.
I loved when he went to draw his blaster, and that's when Kylo woke up, and then Hux kind of quickly put it back. And
Kylo's got to be tired of people drawing weapons on him in his sleep.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of the scene I was referring to before about the genesis of everything, where Luke activates a saber over the sleeping Ben? How did you guys respond to that scene and the different interpretations of it?
I appreciated the way they told it so that you got both perspectives. Seeing two sides of the same story. Which makes perfect sense that Luke, again, like Yoda said, sometime the best teacher is failure, and Luke failed in that split second. He failed, and if he would have been quicker to turn off his lightsaber, it probably wouldn't have happened, but it was too late. He did it. He created Kylo Ren by not trusting not only his nephew and pupil, but himself as a teacher. He panicked, thought he would just take care of it, which is not something that a Jedi would do, I don't think. Not in that way, anyway. It just seemed odd to draw your lightsaber to decapitate your nephew and Padawan, even though that's not what I don't think he called him.
Well, probably not, yeah. Might have been a youngling.
Yeah. It was just... again, showing that Luke had failed more than what we ever expected him to.
Yep, and as he always has, and on some level, he's the same whiny farm boy he's always been. Call that a consequence of not getting into the Jedi training until he was much older than is typical. But he never really learned to completely rein in and control his emotions, and so he overreacted to this whole thing, and ran off and hit himself on Ahch-To. But
no different than his father did in some ways with what happened in Revenge of the Sith either. His Anakin caused everything that happened to Padme and for everything to come to fruition in Revenge of the Sith because he thought he could stop a vision he had, when really that vision, by him trying to stop it, is what caused everything to happen to begin with. So by him even interfering with trying to save Padme caused everything that led to everything down the road. If he would have just left well enough alone, it would have been fine. If Luke would have just gone to talk to him instead of just intending to draw his lightsaber, we'd probably be seeing a completely different story now.
I don't know that he exactly intended to draw his lightsaber on Ben. I think it was more like a moment of he allowed fear to penetrate to him in that moment, and in that moment of weakness, he contemplated doing the deed. And
his intent to go there was to stop Kylo in some way. He just failed in that split second, but he was going to do something to stop him.
Yeah, I don't think we can really say it was premeditated.
Right.
Go ahead, Chris.
I enjoy them showing Luke having that moment of weakness because that. that makes him all the more a three-dimensional character and just all the more a stirring, inspirational character for what he then does later on in the film. I like when the heroes have a bit of feet of clay, so to speak. And again, Shane, I thought you gave a wonderful analysis there, because so much of the journey of Star Wars and of the key characters is, dealing with temptation, seduction, and how they respond to that. And sometimes they fail.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, and I think they've done a good job of showing there are sometimes massive consequences with beings this powerful when they fail like that.
I even think that's a good, not to sound strange, but a good social commentary. I think a generation of people that live on this earth now don't have a good understanding of consequences for their actions. Just the way the world is. I think they were brought up to expect no consequences for things that happen. So I don't mind a good commentary in a movie like this that millions upon millions of people might see, realizing there are consequences to everything that happens.
Ladies and gentlemen, I always love when Shane gets deep like that. Outstanding.
Which does not happen often.
I just got chills. Wonderful. Well said, sir. Well said.
There was some disappointment I just wanted to say, and it just left my head. Son of a gun. I'll think of it again.
Okay, well, let me return to one of Chris's earlier questions about Kylo Ren, and just to give my own thoughts. I think he's the most interesting new character that's been introduced in these two movies so far. I think he's got the best arc thus far. His character progressed more between the last movie and this one than anybody else, more so even than Rey, I believe. And so he's moved beyond just being sort of this poor soul who's striving pathetically to be, the archdemon that his grandfather had been, trying to be Darth Vader Jr. And in this movie, he threw one of his trademark tantrums at the beginning.
Yep.
Got it out of his system, just as he realizes just what a fool's errand this is, attempting to live up to the legacy of his grandfather instead of creating his own. And so we see him, and I enjoyed the dialogues between him and Rey, those sort of Force-enabled Skype conversations via telepathy. It reminded me, on some level, I guess, of like a contemporary teen romances of like young people communicating via social media, but I suppressed that.
Sure.
And was able to think of it as something else, sort of a mental duel between representatives of two sides of the Force, each of them sort of growing in reaction to the lessons they were learning from one another, and then finally meeting in person. And it's just setting up a pretty what's promising to be a heck of a final conflict in the next movie.
Yeah,
and Kylo Ren finally resolving, realizing that trying to sustain all these old institutions, the Jedi, the Empire, the Rebellion, he just wants to burn it all and build something new. And he's got the raw materials in what's left of the First Order to do that. And just where Kylo Ren is left at the end of this movie is going to make the next one all the more unpredictable.
Yeah,
and Murd, that's a great point, and I couldn't agree more, because. And this is a compliment to the director / writer. I don't know where they're going to go with the Kylo Ren character. I really have no idea, which is exciting, because they've done a good job. And again, Driver's a fine actor. You can't just say, oh, he's just 100% evil and he's just supervillain, and it's more than that. And when you look at his origins and what happened to him when he was at Luke's academy and so forth, he's a very interesting villain. And the best villains always have that complexity, that part of them that you go, I almost kind of understand where they're coming from, even though it kind of makes me uncomfortable. And I think that's one of the strong points of these new films, especially this one. Well,
to speak to that point, he also in his growth, even though they didn't reference it in this movie, I wonder if he would have been thinking about what his father said just before he killed him about, Snoke will just use you and then crush you. And that's through the beginning of this movie. That's exactly what was happening, and why he hesitated to shoot his mother, because, he's already done what he thought he should do with his father, and that sure didn't get him anywhere. That just got him berated by Snoke anyway. He sure keeps getting put down, and he's still trying to do everything he thinks he's supposed to be doing. So maybe this isn't the right way to go. Doesn't shoot his mother. gets Rey, and still gets downed by Snoke. And then he's like, all right, that's enough. I've had it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get rid of you
I've
because...
got what I need from you, Snoke, and now
Yeah.
I'm going to do you just like I did my father. That seems to be his MO now. He's just learning little bits and pieces of incorporating whatever lessons he can learn from the influences in his life and then slaying them before they begin to control or overdetermine him.
Yeah, or change what he thinks he should be in his head. I think Snoke could have turned him completely if he hadn't done what he did right at that moment. Just like if he would have given Han any more time in the first one, he would have left with him.
By the way, different line of discussion here, if I may. I really thought Finn was going to die.
I did too.
And I thought that would have been a powerful moment, a major character. I really like that character, I like that actor, but I was a little disappointed in terms of dramatic effect that he didn't sacrifice himself, because I think they really would have blown, really taken people aback.
Yeah.
But I guess they were willing to go that far. So
I agree with you that it would have made for good narrative symmetry. For him to die at that moment. But at the same time, Finn, next to Kylo Ren, I find him the second most interesting new character.
Very interesting character. I agree, Murd.
In this trilogy. Yeah. So I'm glad that they spared him there, even though the way they went about it was a little bit syrupy and cheesy.
Well, what I like about Finn is that, and Murd, again, you may raise a fine point, he's a former stormtrooper. He's a character who's just as often trying to run away as he is trying to remain engaged with the cause. And I enjoy that struggle that they portray within him. I mean, they've got outstanding actors in these roles, and they, like in the previous film, you really felt the chemistry between Rey and Finn right immediately, and that speaks well of the writing and of the actors they've cast. I really enjoyed the mechanic, who may become Finn's love interest,
Rose.
I thought I really enjoyed her character. It looks like they're setting up a romance between Rey and Poe.
Yeah, a little bit, or even there was some conjecture about Poe and Finn, at least from Poe's perspective. I like that they gave Finn someone else to care about in Rose because of how awestruck he was with Rey. I prefer them to be friends because. Since Rey was the first person that ever took notice of Finn and cared for him in any capacity, I didn't want him to have like the Florence Nightingale, somebody paid attention to me, now I'm just going to follow her to the end of the earth. Yes. It's fine to protect her, it's fine to do what he was doing, but to give Finn somebody else that might be interested in him changed his thought process, changed his demeanor.
Go ahead.
By the end of the movie.
Also, I'm sorry, Shane. I apologize.
No, go ahead.
I think I could see, because they were making googly eyes at each other for a split second at the end between Poe and Rey, because Rey becomes like the Leia-like character. Poe is clearly a Han Solo swashbuckling type character, so you could see that attraction developing. I wish I had seen more Chewbacca in the movie.
I do too. Him and R2-D2
Chewbacca. I think
underutilized.
Yeah, I think it's a different actor now in the suit.
It is.
I think so, yeah.
May I just throw out there that the new Chewbacca actor, who's continuing to play the role under the supervision of Peter Mayhew, his name is Jonas Sotamo. He's from Finland, and he is a Penn State University graduate.
Oh, get out.
Fellow Nittany Lion. He played basketball for them. At 6'10", you'd kind of expect
great.
He'd have some basketball in his background.
But Peter Mayhew's giving him creative suggestions.
Yeah, I think they actually shared the suit in the last one.
I think so.
They had Sotamo do some of the more dangerous or difficult stunts, and I think in the next movie he's going to be flying solo. Like Mayhew will just be around as a consultant. He won't be in the costume at all.
Yeah.
Was Mayhew in the costume in this film?
I think for some of the shots, yeah.
If he was, I took it at the ones where like Chewbacca was sitting, talking to Luke, or sitting trying to eat one of the pogs. Just certain times I thought it was Peter Mayhew.
Shane, you're close on time, are you not?
Fairly close, yeah. I can go a little bit.
Well, do we want to come to sort of our long-winded closing comments, gentlemen?
I thought of what kind of disappointed me, but at least they sort of explained it in the movie. I thought it was somewhat silly to allow the rebellion to just keep out of distance of the First Order. Just send another ship that's smaller and can blow them up. But that's not the way they did. like they even showed it on the screen at one point where, they're just keeping out of distance. Then I'm thinking, go faster. I just...
But then there's no story, right?
I know. It just seemed...
They're taking eternity to run out of fuel.
That, more than anything, just seemed a little sillier to me.
Tell a different story, then.
But it's fine. It turned out okay. They did say something about, well, we can't just maneuver that well. We'll just keep at him, and we'll get him in a few minutes.
Okay, as long as they made some token gesture to plug up the hole in the story.
Yeah, that part was a little weird. I love that they went to the base and tried to reuse old Rebellion stuff. I also like that because of everything that happened in The Force Awakens with the core planets being destroyed, you don't have just the blind devotion from everybody in the galaxy to defeat the First Order. You had them send out a message and nobody replied yet because they're too afraid. And they don't think the resistance is going to hold up. Well, now, because of everything that Luke did and what's going to happen from here forward, now you have that spark that everybody kept talking about during this film.
Yep. So the very last scene, sort of shows that spark catching on, I guess.
Well, in the first time I saw it, I missed the kid forcing the broom to his hand.
Oh, it was kind of blinking. You missed it, but it was there.
Then I saw it the second time. I'm like, oh, all right, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, that scene to me, it was nice. I'm glad they did it. It kind of was really hitting hard on the idea of Star Wars as something like a cultural heirloom, like a legacy that the older fans who grew up with it are now passing down to their children. Case in point, sitting across from me here, also on Skype with us. But yeah, so it's this young child looking up, raising his rebellion signet ring up to the heavens. It's a nice moment. I'm glad they did it, but I'm going to make now the same comment I made during our Rogue One review. I wish they'd switched it around a little bit and not ended on that image. It would have been nice if they'd gone out with the characters that the film is really about.
Sure.
Just that scene with everybody gathered together in the Resistance flagship and Leia saying to Rey, "We have everything we need."
Yeah.
That is the perfect Star Wars ending.
Yep. I thought that too.
And I thought it was powerful. Again, I was... like everybody, I was so sad to see Carrie Fisher pass.
Oh, absolutely.
She was so wonderful in that role. I mean, she's a great actress, period, and she's one of the greatest senses of humor probably in the history of Hollywood.
I
and
loved her.
Fine writer as well.
Loved her in The Birds.
Oh, yeah. But it was great seeing her as still the heart of the rebellion. And, even at the end when again, I liked how it was really just a few dozen of them left.
Yeah.
Because they're all in the Falcon, and that's it. I mean, but she's still there, at the center of it, inspiring them. And I'm sure however they explain the characters passing in the next film, like you said, Shane, I have full confidence it'll be moving even if she's not actually there.
Yeah. I guess it made sense for what Poe went through so that they could bring him as someone who was learning to be a leader, not just a hero.
Which is going to have to be.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anybody else get a little verklempt when the end credits declared that the movie was dedicated to our princess?
Yeah.
And then it switched over to Leia's theme.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was a nice touch.
Do we want to give swears, gentlemen?
I'd still give it a 4 or 4.5. I mean, I still enjoyed it well enough. Visually, it was spectacular. The music was fantastic.
The settings, like the Salt Planet crate.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Although it was a little heavy-handed for the guy to touch the ground and go, ooh, salt. Okay, great.
Okay, we get it.
Yeah, we got it.
It's not Hoth, it's not ice, it's salt.
I wasn't thrilled with the casino thing as much. I thought that was a lot of wasted time.
Let me just jump right on your bandwagon there, Shane. Everything, the shark jumping moments for me, everything with Luke and Rey on Ahch-To, everything involving Kylo Ren, that was all great. But the B story with Finn and Rose and Canto Bight Casino and everything from
it dragged the film a little bit. I agree,
and I appreciate the commentary that it was
BB-8 piloting a frickin' ATST. Yeah, that was. It all felt awfully prequely to me. And so that part I could have done without all of that.
And someone I read complained about how easily Phasma was dispatched. Because in the book and in lore now, she's supposed to be the best hand-to-hand combatist in the First Order, and that's fine. I just think at that point, Poe got the best of her by surprising her. Like, as he rose up, just whoop, he whacked her good, and it was too late. And the floor crumbled from under her, and down she went.
Yeah, she could still be alive under that armor, too.
Yeah, I kind of hope not, given that she's kind of been useless twice now. I like the actress.
She's a running gag now.
I like the character.
Oh, my God.
Well, yeah,
they
she's
killed
Kenny.
Phasma. You bastard.
I hope not. And if she comes back, I hope she's menacing. I mean, I really want her to be menacing.
They probably would have had to perform Vader surgery on her to keep her alive.
It's possible, and maybe that did happen. But
just to do the same thing that they did to Anakin Skywalker after.
Yeah.
What planet was that anyway? Was it?
That was Mustafar.
Mustafar, yeah.
I was about to say Geonosis, but I realized that wasn't right.
Yeah.
I'll give it a solid 4 out of 5. Reckon swears. Yeah. Definitely.
Murd? 3.5.
Yeah, that's fair. I said to one of my coworkers who went and he disliked it greatly.
Yeah, there are people who are saying it's destroyed Star Wars forever, and those people are hysterical fringe.
And I don't think that, because you have to, just like Star Trek did with The Next Generation, which was a huge gamble to begin with, but it worked. You have to, if Disney's going to keep this and make it a viable franchise here going forward, you have to find ways to reinvent it and move it forward. That does mean handing it off to someone other than Han, Luke, and Leia at some point.
Of course.
And
sure.
It's that time, especially now, especially with everything that's happened in the last year, let alone what happened in The Force Awakens.
Yep, and these first 2 movies have been pretty self-conscious about the baton passing gestures that they're making.
So I said to him, I'm a little more forgiving about a Star Wars movie because I just enjoy seeing new Star Wars. I certainly do not think it was terrible. I truly think it was at least a 4 for me. I really did enjoy it, and I'd go see it again if somebody wanted to go see it.
I intend to. Unfortunately, I live too far away from you, sir, for us to go together.
Right.
If I may pivot for a moment, gentlemen, before we break, I really want to talk about the Avengers trailer. I assume you've both seen it.
Oh, wasn't that fantastic?
I'm sure I have. I'm having a hard time recalling the specifics, but I know I've seen it.
I am so excited for this film, Infinity War. I mean, I was already excited to begin with, just because I think Marvel's just done a bang-up job with the movie progression. But just seeing this trailer, and when you see Thanos, and he just levels Iron Man with one punch,
I still don't think he looks right. I still think Thanos looks off.
Yeah, the shape of his head, I think, is what's the matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Brack on the forum shared a modified, like a photoshopped image of him to look like Homer Simpson. And it does kind of bring the point home.
Yeah, but I have no doubt it'll look spectacular in context, or if they change something. But yeah, that was one hell of a trailer.
Well, when you see the entire Wakandan army crossing the veldt with Black Panther and Cap and Winter Soldier at the head of it, it's just thrilling. Get this man a shield. I mean, it's going to be great. It's the same directors as Winter Soldier, right? In Civil War, the brothers. Correct?
I don't even know. I didn't even look at that part. Okay,
I want to say yes. I'm not positive. But between that and again, the Black Panther trailer is just gorgeous. I mean, that's next month or 2 months. Excuse me.
Cannot wait.
And that looks like they've just nailed it.
Yeah.
It looks like, I mean, again, it's only a trailer, but it's just that they got all the key ingredients of the Black Panther myth are there. The mythos. So, I'm very excited for the next 2 Marvel films coming down the pike, because it just, I mean, think about it. We've been building towards Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet since Iron Man 1. Yeah. I mean, they've been going towards this, and nearly a decade later. Think about that. I mean, it's really an incredible achievement.
Oh, it absolutely is.
They've built in this Marvel Cinematic Universe
for a new movie group in such a short time, with 17 films out now already, or something like that. Just spectacular.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing that, and of course to discussing it at great length. Next spring.
Yeah.
So. Woo! Yeah. Those trailers are thrilling.
The trailers I saw was A Wrinkle in Time, which looks phenomenal.
The Maze Runner was one of the.
I didn't have the Maze Runner. I had Black Panther, Infinity War, and I think Wrinkle in Time. And Jumanji. That was the 4th one I saw that they showed. All movies
I had Jumanji. I don't remember. And Panther and Avengers. I don't remember what the other ones were, but.
Yeah,
exciting.
We got there a little late, so we came in on the second half of Maze Runner. I think all we got after that were Black Panther and Avengers.
Okay. Very good.
All right, gentlemen, shall we take it out?
Take it out. Visit us at comicgeekspeak.com to send us an email. The address is comicgeekspeak@gmail.com. I just screwed up my phone. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. Stop by thecomicforums.vanillaforums.com and let us know what you think. I know there's a hefty thread already out there.
Which I have yet to read, but I will go and read before this night is over.
Me too. We would like to thank everyone who contributes and comments on things. We appreciate it. We couldn't do it without people listening and love reading everybody else's thoughts. And as always, we are uniting the world's mightiest heroes, one listener at a time.